Welcome back to the Hey Unk podcast. So, in this episode, we're going to dive deep into the heart of relationships, the messy, the beautiful, the transformational journey of growing alongside your partner. So, whether you've been together for decades or just starting out, maintaining that healthy, vibrant bond is more of an art than a science. And every relationship is unique and every relationship changes and evolves over time. So as we get into this conversation, we all know love isn't just candlelit dinners and sunset walks on the beach. It's also about weathering those storms together, picking up that slack when your partner's down, supporting each other's dreams, holding each other accountable, and calling your partner privately on their BS when need be. So every relationship faces challenges. You have disagreements, life crises, life changes, but you want to weather those storms together, and it gives you those opportunities to grow as a couple or as partners. So spoiler alert, in your relationship, every relationship, you're going to stumble and you may even fall, and that's okay. What's important is how you rise together. So grab your popcorn, grab your favorite beverage, and strap in for this episode of the podcast, Relationships and Other World Wars. Fellas, welcome.
What up?
Morning.
Thank you.
What's going on? What's going on?
Good afternoon.
All
Good
right.
afternoon, gentlemen.
As
Damn,
always,
what a start.
Well, yeah, I try.
That's right.
I
Yeah.
try. I'm
I
going to get
love
better. So as always, I am joined by my boys, Uncle Mark Atwater, and Uncle Stewart, Mr. Stewart McDay.
Hey.
And we have a very special guest Unk this week. I'm so proud of this dude, Uncle Dr. Brock Grace.
That's Appreciate you.
PhD,
Doc.
LCMHC, whatever that means. We'll talk about it in a minute. And he is the proud owner of Give Grace Youth and Family Counseling out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Welcome, brother.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Welcome.
Absolutely. So before we really dive in, Brock, talk to us a little bit about what Give Grace is and what Give Grace is about.
Mental health agency where it's myself and four of the clinicians right now. We do a mixture of therapy dealing with, kids, premarital counseling, marriage counseling, kids who are going through divorce, trauma. We kind of try to serve everybody. We have some people who are certified in play therapy for the younger kids. On my caseload, the youngest is 5 and the oldest I'm seeing right now is 68. So it's a combination of everything in between.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to jump right in.
Let's go.
You want to tell them what kind of uncle he is?
That's what I'm jumping right into. How you always jumping the gun?
My bad.
Y'all see this? We have a whole script of what we're going to talk about.
Hosted by Mark.
And he's
That's
still
right.
going to jump the gun.
Okay.
Come on.
Here we
All right.
go.
So,
Mic
Brock,
check.
every episode when we have a guest, we always ask, what kind of uncle are you? So in your family unit, what uncle are you?
I'm the crack jokes about difficult situations on. I'm going to try to make light of the matter. I'll give you my advice before I give you my money. That's the type of uncle I am.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, I'll teach you how to get there, share the story so you won't make the same mistakes I made, but I'm not going to just give you the money to fix your problem because then you're going to come back to me with that same problem later on.
That makes perfect sense. Show them, don't bail them out.
Absolutely.
That's right. All right, so we have made a pact as uncles on this show that we're not going to pull punches. So in this episode, we're going to talk about our relationships and the experiences we've had, but also things we've seen and dealt with over time with all the different people in our lives. So can't nobody get in trouble, right?
No, I just only had one relationship. So
That's right.
That's
Just
it.
one.
There's one.
You found your soulmate right away, and that was it. You had to look at nobody else. That's what I'm talking.
That's what I'm talking
I'm proud of
about. My guy.
I wasn't that. That wasn't me. My experiences.
That wasn't none of us. That was none of us. But, as we get into this topic, it really points out that your partner, whoever you chosen, they're not a clone of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are their own unique, independent person in and of itself. So as you're going down these pathways and you're dating, you're seeing people, all of that, how do you navigate that? Right? You get to know people, but they're different. How far is too far? How different is too different? Right? So with your experiences, and Brock, I'll come to you first. Now, how do you navigate that get to know you phase when you're dealing with a new relationship?
So I can say play to your strengths. So my current partner, my wife, Danielle Grace, she and I are opposites. You know, all of you guys have met her total different than I am. I grew up one way, she grew up one side of the way. But I think letting her lead in the areas where she's strong at what makes our relationship great. So sometimes I want her to take the lead on certain topics because I have no experience on them. She's more experienced. Other times, let me be the heavy, let me lead it. And now we have the best version of what we call Team Grace, no matter what the situation is forward. So it's a learning experience. But I think sometimes as men, we got to push our egos back. And I think we always have to be in control. But to say, hey, I can play second fiddle for a little bit because you have this and I trust that you're going to lead us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because when we were coming up, a lot of us were taught that the man has to lead. We got to lead all the time. You're the man of the house. You got to make the decisions, all of that. And I've always felt that was BS. Right. Number one, very few people live like that in reality, whether they're espousing that or not. But that partnership and figuring out where each other plays is an excellent point. And Stu, we talked about this before, even with Keisha, your wife, right? She is a very strong, independent woman. So kind of how have you guys navigated that dynamic?
Well, I just surrender. That I had away. No, it's similar to what Brock said. It's about recognizing what she does well and what she's passionate about. Because even taking a second fiddle don't mean I'm surrendering my position in the relationship.
Right.
It's actually fortifying it to a degree. Because if you understand where they're strong and I'm not as strong, then why not get the best guidance in a particular situation? So I find myself there more often than not. Now, when it's my thing or my area, then naturally I'm gonna do what I do, and I let her know what's going on, and we're in agreement, we move forward. But I have no problem dealing with a strong-willed individual because I'm secure, first of all, in me, and I don't feel like I demean or reduce myself in that situation.
Okay. Yeah. So just like Brock, I got to that point, but prior to getting to that point, I was that guy who felt like he had to be in charge, and I didn't understand the dynamics of that, understanding her, giving her the opportunity to lead in the areas that she was.
Bro, can you
great
see
at.
me? Can you see me?
Why you asked that?
I'm just curious.
No,
I hated to interrupt, but I had to ask. But go ahead.
no, I can't see you.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't think you could.
All right. So anyway, but yeah, I was, originally that guy who fought it for a while, realizing then you have to realize, wait a minute, sometimes we're gonna agree to disagree, and then understanding the importance of giving that space to your wife to be able, or your spouse, to be able to do those things is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can give one specific example from early on in our marriage. This is when we were still living in St. Louis, and I had to make a career decision about changing jobs. It was going to mean we gotta have to move and all of that. And we are both career people, but it came down to us having a conversation about, okay, well, what do we want out of our careers? Right. And in this case, Gina was like, you know what? I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I don't want to move up. I don't want to manage people in my career. Right. She liked what she was doing. And at that time, Naya was still young. So she was like, and true, I just want to be a mom. Right. So after we had that conversation, then it led to then my career and the opportunities I'm going to have in my career are going to take the forefront when have to make these decisions. That might mean we have to move around a little bit. That's what we're going to have to do. But, in that case, we had a conversation around setting that boundary of who was going to drive, right? We always had discussions. I don't make decisions in a bubble, and neither does she, for the things that, she kind of drives in our relationship. But when a decision has to be made, then we talk about what's the important things, and then that helps make the decision. Yeah. So it's always an interesting dynamic and brought over time. Has that changed in you guys' relationships? Kind of where the line is?
Not really changed over time. I would say early on when we had kids, there might have been some things we discussed of like, because I don't drink, so Danielle does. That was one of the times it's like, that was a hard stance for me. Early on, the first challenge we had in our marriage was the whole changing of the last name. She wanted to hyphenate her last name. And that was one of the times we kind of bumped heads and it was like, no, you're now a Grace. You know, you always be part of your dad's family, but you're now coming to my family. So big things like that, but usually I trust her judgment, go for it. If it's something that doesn't work, then we'll figure it out together if she's that passionate about whatever the topic is.
Yeah. So how do y'all go through when you're reaching that crossroads, right? And maybe you want to go left, I want to go right. You know, how do you work through that?
Well, I'll say this because I'm not always good at it, and I'll be honest about that, is having that conversation about or just sitting down and really mapping it out. Because once I get it in my head, how I see it, I tend to try to force that to be the way that it goes. And I've learned over time that that's not right.
Right.
You're right.
You know, because I have to value her perspective, her opinion, and I don't always do a good job of that. Even as I say it, I realize that's just something I still need to work. I think I'm better at it, but I still need to work.
You know, interesting about that part, it's a slippery slope because I was the guy who valued the opinion of my wife, sometimes took it too much. You know, in other words, some decisions I personally probably should have made. I knew the right way to go, but it's hard finding that balance because I don't want to devalue what she's saying, but at the same time, understanding, you know, we had to realize, okay, I'm going to be the one to take whatever road. If we come to a left or right, you know, and we can't come to that conclusion if we don't see where it can meet, then I got to be the one to take the responsibility. You know, I'm going to take the hit if it doesn't go right. You know what I mean? And it took me a minute to get to that point. You know?
So this is an interesting topic because I saw some videos online and there was a round table similar to this, and they were talking about vulnerability, right? And how can men or are men allowed to be vulnerable, right? In certain situations. And a lady was talking, she was doing a TED talk, and she said she did all these studies around vulnerability in relationships, but it was always from a woman's perspective. And she was having a conversation with a man, and he asked her, he's like, so why don't you study men? And she made some excuse about it and all of that. And the guy's point was, my wife and kids would rather me die on my white horse than for me to show vulnerability and ask for help.
Wow.
And I think a lot of this in relationships where the man always has to be the alpha and always has to be in charge, it puts us in a terrible position because hell, what if I don't know, or B, I just don't have the energy to deal with a situation at that point. Right? I need to be able to rely on my spouse to pick up that slack when I don't have it. So what do you guys think about, one, the statement of society expects us to carry all of the weight, and whether we can or not?
Well, I think that's true. So I'll give you an example. So take two little kids, a boy and a girl. They both fall off a bike. What do we do to the little girl? We pick her up. Baby, what happened? What's wrong? Where does it hurt? Show me. Stu at 6 falls off. Boy, brush it off. Get back on the bike. We're teaching that little boy from early on, shut up. We don't care what you got to say. We don't care how you really feel. Yes, we see you bleeding. Put some dirt on it. Keep going.
Yeah.
We're conditioned to do that up until our teens, our 20s, our 30s. So by the time you get married, that's what you expect. But I think personally, in my relationship, I can be verbal. I can say I had a terrible day at work, or life is kicking my ass right now. I need you to now help me navigate through this journey, because that's why I married you. I want to go through it together and not me always being the lead and saying everything's okay when emotionally I may be dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes too, and that right there can be a confusing situation. I think unless I pointed out from the beginning, because every time you don't want to fix, you just want to be heard. And I'm not looking for you to tell me what to do, give me feedback. I just need to unload.
Right.
And I need to unload it to you because I don't want to be judged by what I'm saying. I don't want you to put no more thought into it beyond I need to release this. And if we don't express, I'm not looking for something, then if you just unload and then you get feedback and then you get frustrated, but she was unaware that you wasn't looking for a solution or a possible solution. She just, you didn't express that you wanted to release. And I think relationships in a nutshell, in my opinion, is 1,000% about
Correct.
100%.
1,000%. Because if we can't articulate what it is that we want, we can't expect for someone else to read our mind.
Right.
So, and I think a lot of times they do things thinking we should just understand, and we are carnivore Neanderthals. We just don't get it.
Right.
So we miss the boat or miss some opportunities sometimes, and they do as well, because the last thing that we are is super expressive. And we're just not really that good at it all the time. And I'm not saying none of the time, but sometimes we just need to say, hey, I'm not looking for solutions. I just need to get something.
Right. Yeah.
And the other side of that is they're not always looking for a solution either.
Correct.
Right. And I know this is one of the areas I had to work on, because I grew up, if I see a problem, my job is to fix it.
Right.
I don't care what the problem is. But there are times where, your partner is just looking for you to say, damn, that sucks. I get it. They're not looking for a solution. But that's, again, another part of communication and you understanding what your partner needs and what energy they're giving off at that time.
So I was you same way. I'm gonna fix it. And we had to finally have that conversation of saying, okay, today I just need you to hear me. Just let me talk. Yeah. I'm gonna be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I see a nail, I'm gonna hit it.
Right.
That's my job. But
stick it up.
Put it down.
Go back down in there.
Got to type that nail back in.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. So, I think another thing about relationships that I've noticed, and this is especially with younger couples, right? They're expecting that whole, we're in love and we expecting that feeling
All the time.
to last all the time.
Right.
Right. And expecting that the way we related to each other and the way we feel about each other, year 2 into a relationship is going to be the same at year 5.
Right.
Right. Love is not static.
Right.
Relationships are not static. People are not static.
Right.
So how do you guys go about navigating when your partner changes and when you change and grow? And, how do you feel about that?
I look at marriage as like a marathon, a minute for the long haul.
Mhm.
It's not a sprint. It's not a quick fix.
Mhm.
So I know, especially when kids came into the picture, that's probably the biggest change in our relationship, to see me as a dad, her as a mom, and how can we put these skills together to be the best version of parents. Probably one of the biggest changes for us, because, she had no kids, I didn't either. But learning to adapt and adjust to see what's going to work best was the greatest thing we could have ever done. But like piggyback off Stu, it comes with a lot of conversations. What's our ultimate goal? How can Brock be himself, Danielle be herself, to get these 2 kids to where we need to go? And we do that with anything. And we've called you and Gina several, hey, Shannon G, what's your thoughts about this? And reaching out to people who have more years experience in a relationship that we value to say, okay, that worked for them. Can we take some of this and now blend it into our marriage, get the best product for ourselves? That's how we handle things.
I think that's the best way to do it. For us, we were myself coming into a different situation where I already had a blended family with kids. That first couple of years is great. You realize, oh my God, and then you go on and then life starts happening, and for us, it was finding ourselves and realizing the importance of me being myself and Tammy being herself. That was a task, because when to your point, you got kids already, then you add more kids, then you're trying to finagle the lifestyle of, two different families and trying to be your own family. That was the key of what you said. And we found relationships of other married couples who were a little more mature than us, who could share information with us to help us maneuver that whole piece of it. Yeah. And that it helped. But it's the frustrating part of going from in my case, year 5, and then all of a sudden you're at year 8 and you didn't figure all that out. You don't spend 3 years not realizing that a solution was right around, it's just having a conversation, and communication is the key to everything.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny you mentioned that time period specifically, because that 7-year itch is a real thing.
Yes, sir.
And I know have a fantastic relationship, but we hit that period where it just seemed like we both always said the wrong thing, always did the wrong thing. And it took quite a bit and a really bad situation for us to work our way through it.
Right.
Because we were still in St. Louis at the time, and it was Uncle Russ passing that helped us get through that whole situation and get back on the same page. But that is a real thing.
Yes, it is.
So for those out there, when you hit that period and things start getting a little funky, it is not just you.
Yeah.
People go through it all the time.
Yeah. So we used to have a saying from 1 to 3, that was on the good days. From 4 to 5, you kind of on cruise control. Yeah, we making it. But from 5 to 8, it's like, okay, we comfortable, but we doing our own thing. We just living. And again, kids are there. Then all of a sudden, from that point on, now you real comfortable. Ain't nobody going to the gym no more. Ain't nobody doing the stuff that they would do. You got your kids, you're lifing, and then you forget the importance of who you all are as a couple. And it's so important to remember, never forget that where you started is also where you want to find yourself. You know what I mean? Being together. Because kids, they're going to leave one day. Now what?
And I would tell any parent, don't be afraid to leave your kids. Like, I'll leave my kids with you all, their grandparents. Just not too long ago, we left them here and we took a vacation. We do that every 2 years. They know you're not coming. I need to be in love with your mom for the call.
That's right.
Because like you said, one day you're going to tell me, bye, Dad, I'm going to college. It's just going to be me and your mom, so we got to figure this thing out forever.
Right.
I got you for at least 18 years before you go to school, so I got to keep pouring that time into her, make sure that love is still there.
Yeah. Now you're going through that transition right now, being an empty nester for the first time.
I'm going to fix that right there.
Okay.
It's almost like a hotel. It's because it ain't nothing permanent about being empty nester at this stage.
While they're in college.
I got 2 in college. They come home frequent enough to remind me that it ain't quite empty. It's just leased out.
Vacant.
That's right. Yeah, he's got a little slight vacancy right now. So, it's amazing the peace that's in the house. So it's like you don't have to really think about dinner like you used to. And that's changed. It's just no accountability, if you will. Not in a negative sense, but like you used to have to rush home because you had to be present. Now we both work so much. It's like, okay, when he shows up, he shows up. Because I'm going to keep doing my thing until he shows up. And then it's late. They try to scramble and eat dinner, that kind of thing. So it's different. But, you're always reminded because it's a text or it's a phone call. I need money. I love you. I need.
Yeah.
We're talking about relationships. I'm going to shift gears just for a minute because just as a girl dad, I feel compelled to share this with all girls, not just mine. You are never defined, you as a young woman, you're never defined by the company you keep. You define yourself through your deeds, your actions, your aspirations, and your well-being. Because to introduce people into that space you can compromise yourself.
That's right.
Because you never know, especially if you haven't known a person that long. You don't know the baggage that they bring. You don't know the habits that they bring. You don't know the expectations that they bring. So I know relationships are bound to happen at some point. I just urge you to be careful and choose you first every single time.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Hey,
Yeah, because this whole I'm gonna change him. No, you
No.
not.
You're
No.
never gonna change.
No, you are not.
No.
He'll
And I'm a
change for you.
dude, and I will
No.
not change.
No,
you
we
will
don't.
not force me
Right.
to change anything.
And you're not gonna change no woman either.
Yeah.
So right.
But,
Man.
you know, typically, to his point, that's when most of the change typically starts to manifest. We don't think about changing women. And no disrespect to no
Yeah,
couple.
good point.
And I said this earlier today. Believe it or not, even to our spouses, we never looked at you in the beginning as, I want to marry this lady. That was not the goal.
Right.
I mean, that's just being 100. And if you out there say, well, I did that with my wife, well, you're 1 in a million for one, but you are definitely in the super minority, which out of every 1 million men, you are the one person that thought that. So out of 2 million men, 2 men thought that. And probably didn't have a lot of luck anyway. But anyway.
Yeah.
That's not how it starts. We never start with that. This is my wife. This is going to be.
That's right.
Evolves into that, but it don't start out like
Yeah, because when me and Gina started, kid, we was just friends until she seduced me.
Oh, yeah, she sure did.
my point exactly.
Exactly.
She
So I
did.
wasn't
She
even
sure
thinking
did.
about that until she
Exactly.
came at me.
And when you told me that, I was like, you know what?
Yeah,
I can see that
makes
happening.
perfect sense.
That's right.
Gina.
Gina.
Just kidding.
And for the record, I just want you to know, I was
Just
about to
kidding.
say he lying about everything.
That
Don't
is
come
my
after me.
story.
He's sticking
That is
to his
my
story.
and I'm sticking to it. Nobody know different.
But no, on another note too, I was asking Mark if he could see me earlier, man, because he's so foggy over there. He can see anybody.
Dude,
I'm fine. I could see him.
y'all,
He
his
changed
glasses are
It's
milky
cause
white.
It's a lot going on up in this room, and I just want y'all to know, Shannon been doing a lot of technical stuff today. All right.
Listen,
So
that did nothing. Okay.
anyway,
It's that time in the podcast where we'll transition to my man Stu's question of the week. So what you got for us this week?
All right, so I thought long and hard about this week, and ultimately, I came up with this due to at the time of this podcast, we're a week removed from a major hurricane breezing through my hometown, Hurricane Helene, and so it made me pose this is the question that I wanted to pose. In any given situation, any catastrophe, would you rather be without power or without water? Running water, that is.
I'd rather do that power.
yeah, all
That's
day.
already set the mood. We in the dark. I got my lady there. We gonna cuddle up.
Right.
Water, I gotta wash my ass.
That's
gotta
right.
be clean. Gotta be able to
Gotta be clean.
eat. That's right. But the lights already off. We can
Right.
burn some candles and make a romantic night out of that thing.
That's
So,
right.
right. Cut the power off.
Not having water, man. That's a big thing, bro. Gotta have water.
It is. It's huge. And then when, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I got to have water.
Yeah.
And my only hesitation is, what if you need to call for help? Water ain't going to make a phone call
Yeah.
for you.
No, and that was one of the things that we faced. We couldn't reach them, period. There was no way I could communicate with my family during this time, which was ultra frustrating.
Yeah.
I couldn't reach anybody, my brothers, my parents, my cousins, any friends. Nobody had cell service, no power, they had nothing. But, the one service that came back first for them was the power. And I'm still learning, like, to your point, you got to bathe or you want to bathe. And bird baths only go so far,
Right.
a whole bath, so
Yeah.
you want to call them. But like you start to think about, like, you got to eat, so now you got to wash dishes. When you got to use the bathroom, how do you dispense to that? It's just things that you take for granted. And to that point, I'd prefer water over, because I can grill some food.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
if
know
nothing
don't
else,
keep
I can
too
start a
long.
fire.
You don't keep too long. Got to have a lot of ice, but it's just something about having that running water. Because during that time, I didn't have power, but I did have water for 2 days. I could still take a hot shower because I have gas. Use a bathroom, brush my teeth, all the basic essentials that still made me feel comfortable even in a frustrating situation. So, but just to think about the stuff that I know that they need or in need of, it's like stuff that we take for granted because we have.
And one thing just dawned on me when you made a statement about you could always grill and cook something on the grill. I thought about, well, hey, if I'm up in the mountains, I'll just go hunt, find me a deer, kill it, skin it, all that. What happened to all those animals during this storm? I know a bunch of farms got destroyed and their livestock got decimated, but what about every other thing that's out there in the woods? So, wow.
And we definitely,
I didn't think about that before.
Yeah. And, we definitely want to send our prayers out to everybody in that area, for sure. Make sure. But the good news is, stewards, people, everybody's doing well, so just want to put that out. To that.
See you tomorrow, mama.
That's right. All
And
right.
pops. They always talk. Why we always shout out moms?
Cause
There you go.
there we go. It goes back to
Yeah,
how we was
I
raised.
get it. I don't want to start a whole
Men
topic.
don't need to. Why is Mother's Day so celebrated? Father's Day is afterthought.
Yeah, I
Right?
guess because we know what's the old saying? Mama's baby, daddy's maybe.
That's right.
Some of us just want to be blamed for being a father because we're a good guy.
Yeah, we always get treated like the redheaded stepchild, but that's okay. At least we get the big piece of chicken most of the time.
Do it. Okay.
Or the grill to cook it on.
Oh yeah.
But we gotta cook it.
But we gotta cook it. All right, so that brings us to the true elephant in the room in any relationship. How important is sex in the relationship? And that's throughout the lifespan of that relationship. And we're really lucky in this conversation to have Brock to talk about this because he studied these types of things. So I really want to come to you, Brock, get your perspective on that question of in a marriage.
So let me ask this before you get into that. So I saw this show one time. It was on HBO. I didn't watch too many episodes, but I seen one or two. It's called Masters of Sex. So is that kind of how you studied this topic, or did you have like a lab partner that you utilized and you just did reading of the text?
So reading an interview. So my dissertation is on the lived experiences of sex education teachers as they navigate sensitive subject matter while teaching sex. Okay. Gotcha. So Shannon announced I got my PhD. My focus of my PhD, the actual research part, was interviewing teachers who've taught in North Carolina for at least 1 year the subject of sex education.
Okay.
See how they navigate teaching kids about sex and the challenges they face. When I first started, the school system told me no. They said it was too sensitive of a topic to deal with. The university that I was attending told me no, can't do this. You're black. And I was told I'm a black male. I'm going to talk about sex. It's never going to work at a Christian university. So we had to play with the words a little bit. So instead of saying sex education, I had to call them health education teachers. Certain things like that. But when dealing with the teachers themselves, they found it challenging sometimes because they were not educated enough to talk to your children, your sons, your daughters about the topic of sex. However, my mother, raised me to anything was on the table. We could talk about anything every day. Sex was one of those primary topics that she would teach me, my sister, my brother about from her point of view, which I thank her for because she said, if you can please a woman, you can always be with that woman. Mm-hmm. As a young guy, I didn't understand that, but it's like, I'm making sure she's taken care of. It's easy to go back to her and, if I can get her off first, I can get off anytime after that. So to me, sex is very important in a relationship. And if I ever talk to my wife, she'll tell you that's my top, anything in the world I could do at any time, I want to have sex. Other stuff falls in line after that. Hers is, being touched.
Why is that so important for you?
Just the experience it gives me. I've never drank, I've never smoked, but sex was my vice. That was my thing.
Gotcha.
So to have that need met or to have it pushed aside by somebody, men didn't feel rejected. They feel not wanted, not valued. But if you're getting something on the regular, you'll go work 30 hours.
That's right.
Won't even bat an eye. Everything can, but if your need is being met, you'll put more into a relationship. And I've worked with couples, straight couples, gay couples, that kind of always one of the central things of are we communicate or connected into it? And if not, that's when people start looking at like, oh, who was the girl in the red dress or who was the guy in the tuxedo? You start veering off.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But if you're getting taken care of at home on the regular, the house is okay.
Yeah. Because I know as I look at that, right, and you can have situations where you and your partner have different sexual appetites, right? You have different sex drives, and it may not be the same. But how do you navigate that conversation, right? Because you mentioned, when men are constantly rejected, it can make you feel like Chester the molester, right? Yeah, I'm trying to have sex with my wife. She don't want to.
Right.
Then now what? Right? Am I a pervert because I want to have sex with my wife? Right? So how do you advise people to navigate that conversation?
I always ask men, when do they first try to have sex with their wife? Usually men, oh, kids will sleep with. No, I tell them sex starts way before that.
Way before.
You trying to have sex with your wife at 8 o'clock? Start 8 o'clock that morning. Mm-hmm. Babe, I love you. The kisses, the hugs, building them up. And I always give men the analogy of we're more like Teslas. Push start, engines on, we're ready to ride. Woman's like an old Buick. Go out there, crank that car for a little while, hit that gas, let it run for a little bit, idle for a while before it can take off running. Because once that motor gets going, she's into it. But I always tell, guys, communicate with your wife what your needs are, your expectations. And if she only wants to have sex twice a week, y'all start there. That's the starting point. Men, use this every day. Like, let's
get at it.
Right. But if hers is twice a week, start there and see how you can build to then 3 times to maybe 4. And it may be unrealistic to think that your wife is going to bend over every day of the week. But I always ask men, what are you doing? Over. Well, not bend over, but whatever your favorite position. I like to clap some cheeks from the back sometimes. Listen, we're going to go there.
Is that one of the things? That was the only thing she had.
Oh, no. Whatever your missionary might be a thing.
I like them all.
Yeah.
But it's clever.
It may be unrealistic to think that you're going to get some every day. And I tell couples, don't use sex as a punishment. You might be mad at this man or this woman, but if that need needs to be met for them, find a way to connect and then keep addressing that, whatever that core issue is with him or her.
I think we're the only ones that can work around that. Anger don't stop me from.
Oh, yeah, right.
So we can. That's not a thing for us.
I was in the one.
As women,
but my wife used
at
to
least traditionally. Yeah, I can't speak for every man, but the guys that I hang around, they
right.
Yeah, we
got
that problem.
My wife used to always say a lot of what you said, and she was like, "Mark, it starts with this great intimate kiss in the morning, a text while we at work." Something to let me know I'm thinking about her. She's like, for women, that means a lot. A big thing for women too is if they are secure and their needs are being met, whatever that need is, a lot of times that's important to them in terms of being intimate with your spouse, because it's the blockage for them. They have a block. We don't. Like he said, we don't have that. That's irrelevant to us. So I think that's key. So for couples that are going through that and don't understand, it starts just like Brock said, first thing that morning. I mean, got to. So
let me ask this. Then why is it the man's responsibility to manage that? Right? Why is it the husband or I won't even say the man, but the person with the higher sex drive, right? Why is it their responsibility?
Listening to you, I can almost answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because that's how it is. Because if you don't, then the activity doesn't happen. And because we are natural hunters, we pretty much have to resort to whatever that situation dictates for us to get what it is. And I don't want it to sound like that, but that's because I've been to a lot of conferences and stuff like that, and they talk about love language and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That is our love. We feel appreciated in those moments. Right. We feel nurtured. We feel revitalized. I mean, it's almost like, okay, you take a cell phone, use that cell phone all day, which is us. We like a cell phone. Our batteries go down. We need to be charged up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what charges it. Some batteries last a couple of days, some batteries last a day. But at the end of the day, you still need to, whatever time frame it needs to be plugged in and recharged, but we go get it as hard as we can once we've been recharged. There ain't nothing you don't do or want to do when you've been charged up.
So you hit it. So Brock, how do you navigate that though? Because that woman, to Stu's point, it doesn't take much for us. And I mean, I feel like I can run through a brick wall for my family, if I'm getting that need met. But flip side of that is, again, my wife is like, well, my needs are completely different. I gotta have that, oh baby, 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 and it's like, okay, I'm
Why
giving
you
it
trying
to,
to touch me?
I don't want to touch it, but it's that whole, I'm giving you that. Oh,
That was uncomfortable.
Again, y'all, they're idiots.
Why we don't do the old baby?
That's why they're idiots. Back to my point, Brock. So again, they're idiots. You made me lose my train of thought. But anyway, the whole point of it is, you're trying to give all that to the spouse or to the woman, and it's like, okay, I'm doing these things for you, but my needs still ain't there. Where's that balance? You know what I mean?
Right. So I can speak on my marriage first, then
Sure.
with couples. So my wife knows I call that my medicine. It needs to be taken so often, or I'm off kilter. Just like if you had a headache,
Right.
I'll give you some medicine for it, and it fixes whatever the ailments are. When I'm talking to married couples, I always ask to do, are you speaking to that woman to get her there? If the oh baby babies is what she needs, give more of that. Oftentimes in couple sessions, the wife will flat out say what she needs to get her in the mood. Well, if he does this more, and the guy will sit there like, and I'm thinking like, dude, write
you
this
listening?
down, listen,
Yeah.
and pay attention. Oftentimes women will tell us exactly what they need
Right.
to get them in the mood. Now, is it going to always work? Absolutely not.
Right.
Because like Shannon said, from year 1 to year, I'm almost at 15,
Mhm.
your partner's going to change.
Right.
You change, they're going to change. Try to be in tune with her needs of, okay, maybe she doesn't want the back rubs or the baby babies anymore. Maybe it's a massage, or maybe it's, sweet nothings throughout the course of the day. But try to be very intentional as to, and what you said, speak her love language. Because oftentimes we speak the love language to our partner that we want them. So guys, physical touch. Hey, get a massage. Now I'm trying to get some. Versus theirs may be words of affirmation, quality time,
Correct.
gift giving. So make sure you're speaking her language to get her moved.
All right.
Yeah. Love it.
So I don't like dealing with doctors.
See,
They break stuff down.
make it plain, baby.
sense.
Make it
I know
plain.
that, but I just don't do that.
See, that's what I
You
love,
just
bro.
gotta do
Make it
better.
plain,
I mean,
baby. That's what I love.
And I was gonna say too, and the flip side of the coin is, we can't always just expect for them. We have to do the same.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
All right.
Caught that.
So as we transition to Mark's philosophy, all right. So you got something for
I
us
got
this
something
week?
for us today. So all the things that we've been talking about, things we're dealing with. I used to like to talk about, when we're talking to couples and so forth, what are red flags? Red flags are things that are important to you, but they're also things that you don't think about that come up later on and causes a problem. Examples of that is when you're dating somebody, it's important to realize and look at the family dynamics. How are they with their mother? How are they with their father? If you don't, because that at some point that's going to transition to you. When you have kids, do they get along? Things like that. Small things. Can they cook? How important is that to you? Can you, because again, like we've already expressed in this whole thing here, you ain't changing nobody. They can adapt and get a little bit better, but if she can't cook or he can't cook, don't expect that. And if you are a person who clean, if that man or that woman don't know how to clean the way you used to clean it, understand that's going to be your role in that situation. So, if you can focus on what red flags that come about as you are dating and doing those types of things, it's important to focus on them. Don't get caught up in he giving it to me and and I can just overcome that. No, because again, at some point during that marriage, like we've been saying, it's gonna get to a point where you're gonna level off, and oh baby, 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 love ain't what it used to be. So now what? So just take
So
that.
that brings up an interesting conversation. Because for me, my biggest red flag in a relationship is if the woman was needy. right?
Mhm.
And everybody has their own definition of needy. But if you can't go somewhere on your own, or you always depending on me, waiting on me to do X, Y, and Z and all, that needy, clingy, I can't do it.
Right.
And the first signs of it, I was out. So, Stu, what did you have any just straight out red flags that would make you walk away?
Oh, that's really good. It took me a while to realize what those were. And by the time I figured them out, I don't even know how to answer that, to be honest with you, because it's just one of those things where I don't know. I'll just leave it at that.
And what about you, bro?
Probably the biggest red flag is, let's say, isolation, especially from my family, especially when I was just out in the world doing my own thing. If you didn't want me to spend time with my family, you wanted me to always be with your people, that was key to me. Now, I know my family's a handful. It's a lot of different personalities to deal with. But if you couldn't become a part of that group,
Right.
you were not for me.
Right.
And the test was always, could you deal with my sister? She was a lot. You could sit down and have a conversation with her for 20, 30 minutes and get grilled by the aunts and all that, and you could stay. You're cool.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. So for me, like Tam and she could cook. My God. I was like, okay, I know if nothing else, I'm gonna eat. I know that's small, but it was a big thing. And I watched the way she took care of the kids. And I said, okay, if this is gonna be that person, I know she's gonna be a fantastic mother. Those are things for me. And then I think the biggest thing was when I got an opportunity to meet the family. And once I met the family and I saw how dysfunctional, normal, normal they were, it was like, okay, I can do this, because I had someone before couldn't stand her mama. My mama couldn't stand her mama. And I was like, okay, that's a red flag, so I don't want to deal with that, because my mama was the most important thing at one point. You know what I mean? So she still is. She's still number one. My bad.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one. And you helped me bring it out, to be honest. Is how to show up. So what I mean is, like, I don't care what we're dealing with. If I have to go somewhere, we have to go somewhere, present ourselves to other people, but they don't need to know
That's right.
that we ain't vibing. So if we don't know how to show that was an issue for me.
Mhm.
Before I got married.
Of course.
Right. My wife can do it also. She's earned that right at this point. That was super important, is you knew how to show up.
Yeah. So I just want to emphasize again for those out there. I mean, look at things. Does that man or woman like to work? Are they a couch potato? Those things are important, because they're gonna flare up at some point. And are you able to deal with that? Because, well, I thought he was gonna change, or no.
So
He showed you. I used to always say, he showed you who he was, or she showed you who she was. You knew it. You just didn't see the signs.
No, you saw it.
You saw
didn't
them, but you
believe
just
it.
didn't believe.
Believe
Right.
those
Thought
signs
you
is
could
what I was
change.
gonna say. They're there for a reason.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you all for spending this time with us today. And we'll go ahead and wrap up. And Brock, we really appreciate you joining us and giving your insight. Any advice you would give to couples, or more importantly, what would you tell people that are shy about attending counseling, or not sure if they should go see somebody and talk to anybody? What advice would you give them?
Mental health is real, guys. We take care of ourselves, our bodies. We go to gyms, eat right. You go to church for your spiritual. Mental health is very important. And don't always believe what you see on TV. Like, I know I don't look like what the stereotypical mental health counselor looks like. I get that a lot. People come in and say, I thought you were going to be a white woman. That's typically what you see on TV. You're not actually laying on a couch. You're sitting there having a conversation similar to what we did. The important thing is that you can take your problems there like once a week. You can give it to a trained professional who's going to help guide you through it, walk with you through that journey, and give you tools to navigate it. And the great thing about that is you don't have to worry about one, being judged. Two, it's somebody who's been through or dealt with similar situations that you may have gone through. And three, if they can't help you, usually they're going to refer you to somebody who's has more experience in that subject matter. And I look at it, I always tell people, look at me as a mental health counselor as like a barber. Just because I can cut hair, don't mean I cut the hair the way you need it to be cut. And don't be afraid to switch therapists. If you're in a session, let's say you give them a couple of weeks and it's not there, ask to be referred out to somebody who may specialize in trauma or divorce or whatever the case may be, and to keep trying it until you get the right person that's going to help you out.
Great advice.
Can I ask a question too? Black men, I think it's important. Mental health, again, to your point. How do you, how do I say it? How do you get Black men to realize the importance of, getting their mental health by talking to somebody?
Great question. Doing things like this and just bring awareness to it. I do have a lot of African-American males on my caseload now. At first I didn't, but I'll give you an example. So there was a guy who didn't want to grieve the death of his father. And I asked him a simple question. I said, was your dad important to you? And he listed off all the qualities of his dad. And he was like, I didn't want to grieve because I didn't want my son to see me cry. I said, well, when you pass away, it's going to be okay for your two boys to cry. He was like, absolutely. I was like, so why did you feel like you can't? He didn't want to be perceived as weak. I was like, that's not weak by showing your kids
Right.
that you love this man who was there every day, still married to your mom until he passed away, a great dad.
Right.
I was like, let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable, to have that moment of, I'm hurting. This is what I'm going through, because they'll now go into the fact that they lost their grandfather. They can come to you and say, Dad, I miss Papa. I miss him too for these reasons. And y'all can now bond closer over this man who's taught you so many great qualities that you passed on to them. So it's important for African-American males to seek mental health counseling.
Absolutely. So everybody out there, your mental health is just as important as your physical health. So if you need help and don't know how to go about it, we're going to post some links to resources at the end of the video, and they'll be on our website as well. So please reach out and get the help you need. And even if you just want to be better, right? You don't have to wait until you're in a crisis to get help and talk to someone. So it's very important. Again, Brock, thank you for being here. Thank you for all the information. And everyone, make sure you're following us, liking the podcast. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're also on YouTube. So check that out and follow us and engage in the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. So with that, peace.
Deuces. Let us know, power or water. We want to hear from you.